Alright, today we're going to talk about analyzing graphs. And before we start actually looking at graphs, we need to know how to read the graph. Well, on each graph there's going to be an independent variable, and that independent variable is the input of a function. It's a variable whose value determines the value of the output or dependent variable. The independent variable will always be represented on the x-axis. The dependent variable, on the other hand, is the output of a function, and it's a variable whose value depends upon the value of the input or independent variable. The dependent variable will always be on the y-axis. One way to remember this is that the independent variable is always what determines, okay? It's cause and effect. This is the cause and this is the effect. So let's move on and look at a couple of examples and see if we can figure out which is the independent and dependent variable. In our first example, we've got Billy Bob has an after-school job and earns $8 for every hour that he works. So on our graph, we would have to have one axis would have to represent the number of hours he works, and the other would represent the money he earned. So which one affects? Does the hours worked affect the money earned, or does the money earned affect the hours? Well, in this case, it's the hours worked that's the independent variable. It's the one that affects how much money was earned. So the money earned would be the dependent variable. In our next example, we've got Sally Sue, and she's on a road trip and is traveling at a rate of speed of 65 miles per hour. So for every hour she drives, she travels 65 miles. So which is going to be in control? Is it the hours that control the distance, or the distance that controls the hours? Well, this is kind of an iffy one, but time is always going to be your independent variable. So in this case, the driving time is the independent variable because it's how long she drives that determines the distance that she will travel. So time would be the x-axis and the distance traveled would be the y-axis. Let's look at a graph and see if we can figure out a couple things from the graph. This graph shows the amount of soda a plant has on hand December through June of a particular year. You can see that the x-axis is the time, and that time is represented in months. The y-axis is the number of liters produced or on hand during that time, and they have intervals of 10,000. So as we go up, if we look at how much soda was on hand in March, we're going to start over here at the origin. We're going to travel over to the month of March, and then we're going to go up until we intersect our graph. And when we intersect our graph, we see that we're at 20,000. So there were 20,000 liters produced or on hand in March. The next question says, in what month was there 50,000 liters in stock? Well, so this time we want to go up the dependent axis to 50,000, and then we're going to go across until our graph is on that 50,000 mark. When we do, we see that mark is on the month of May when we travel down there. So it would be the month of May. Sometimes graphs have more than one line on it, okay, and each line represents something else. In this one, this is a company and greeting cards, and it's how many cards of each type they produced in each particular year. The green line represents the number of Christmas cards. The purple line represents the number of thank you cards. So the x-axis again is time. This time the time is represented in years. The dependent axis, or the y-axis, is the number of cards produced, and they go up by 100,000 each time. So let's look at our first question here and see if we can work it out. It says, how many more Christmas cards were produced in 2013 than in 2012? Well, to be able to do this, we need to know how many cards were produced in each year. So let's do 2013 first. So we're going to start at the origin. We're going to go over to 2013, and we're going to go up until we meet our graph. And we're looking for the green graph because we're talking about Christmas cards. Well, in 2013, there were 400,000 Christmas cards produced. The other amount we want is how many were produced in 2012. So let's start at our origin. We're going to go over to 2012 and up to our graph, and we see that that is 100,000 cards. To find out how many more, so we're looking for the difference, so it's a subtraction problem. So we're going to do 400,000 minus 100,000, and that is equal to 300,000 cards. So what this is saying that there were 300,000 more cards produced in 2013 than there were in 2012. Okay, the last thing we're going to do with this graph is we're going to try to determine what year were the most thank you note or the thank you cards made. So we're looking for the highest peak on the purple line because those are thank you cards. So I'm coming up here to the highest peak, and I look over there, and that is there's 1 million cards produced, and I want to know what year that was, so I just follow straight down to my x-axis, and that's the year 2015. So what year were the most thank you cards made? Absolutely, the year 2015. Guys, I hope this helps you a little bit, and be sure to reach out if you have any questions.